Good morning. It's Friday, November the 13th of 2020, and I'm telling you it's a fabulous Friday. Oh my goodness, all the junk going on about Friday the 13th. My goodness, this is the day the Lord hath made. I will rejoice and be glad in it. This is a fabulous day. It's a blessed day. Today is a gift. And we've got good news in the scriptures today. We're reading Ezekiel chapters 27 and 28. This time, God's having Ezekiel, he actually calls it singing a funeral song to Tyre. And Tyre was a mighty gateway to the sea, the trading center of the world, highly prosperous. They had everything going their way. Gee, does that sound familiar? Best economy we've ever had. Everything's going our way. The note that I actually had in my column about today's reading was from 2018. And I wrote, "You used to be so good, so successful." And then as I move forward, as he is prophesying, or actually singing, the funeral song over the great city of Tyre, the next entry that I'd made in 2018 is, "You took your eyes off God." You took your eyes off God. We talked many times about when everything's going good, that we've got to press in even deeper, even deeper still, to just make sure that we're listening to God, that we're letting him guide us. I want to see who's on this morning. There's Nancy. Hi, Nancy. Good morning, Judy. Hi, Sue. There's my friend Debbie and my friend, did I say Joy Sue already? I did, didn't I? And Judy's on. Hi, Judy. There's two Judys. There's several Judys that join us, actually. So good to see everybody. Good morning, good morning. Eileen's giving us our morning hugs. My sister from Colorado's on. Good morning, good morning. So, my next entry in Ezekiel is from 2018, and it says, "Pride brought you down." Because chapter 28, verse 1 said, "In your great pride you claim that I am a God." Tyre got so big and so full of themselves that they just considered themselves a god. They were so prideful that they just, well, it just says, "I sit on a divine throne in the heart of the sea, but you're only a man and not a god, though you boast that you're a god." So the king of Tyre, I also found it very interesting today how oftentimes God speaks directly to the king. There's many times he addresses the people, but he also just like today, addresses the king himself. And, we've often talked that we're all leaders. We all have somebody that's watching us. We're leading in our everyday lives. You are a leader, and God oftentimes speaks directly to that leader. In fact, it's interesting in verses starting about verse 13. Just a quick question about, say, 13 through around 19. Wonder, was Ezekiel addressing the king of Tyre, or was he describing Satan? You were the model of perfection, full of wisdom and exquisite in beauty. You were in Eden, the garden of God. Your clothing was adorned with every precious stone: red carnelian, pale green peridot, white moonstone, blue-gray beryl, onyx, green jasper, blue lapis, lazuli, turquoise, and emerald, all beautifully crafted for you and set in the finest gold. They were given to you on the day you were created. So anyway, just a question. But I also circled today, that last part of verse 13, that last sentence I read, I'm going to read it again, 14 and 15. And there's a message for us today, Friday the 13th of 2020, and it's a reminder for us. Now, let's make this personal. They were given to you. So he's talking about all these blessings were given to us on the day we were created. I ordained and anointed you as a mighty angelic guardian. You had access to the holy mountain. You were blameless in all you did from the day you were created until the day evil was found in you. Our blessings were given to us before we were even created. I mean, God set aside the blessings that's for us even before we were created. As we're reading in like chapter 28, verse 20, then another message came to me from the Lord. Son of man, turn and face the city of Sidon and prophesy against it. Give the people of Sidon this message from the sovereign Lord. That word turn caught me this morning. The fact that he had to turn to face just is symbolic to me that he was not aligned with these evil people. Because over and over again, you'll hear it through the readings that when God told him to prophesy, he'd have to turn. I just think it's significant. I don't know, maybe it's just me, that he was not aligned with the evil people. We're not to align ourselves with the evil people. And then starting in verse 25 to the end, is our promise. It was a prophecy back then. Today it's the promise we stand on. It describes how we get to live our life today. But this is what the sovereign Lord says. The people of Oklahoma, the people of Skiatook, will again live in their own land, and the land I gave my servant Elizabeth or Donna or Tom, for I will gather them from the distant lands where I've scattered them. I will reveal to the United States of America my holiness among my people. They will live safely in the USA and build homes and plant vineyards. And when I punish the neighboring nations that treated them with contempt, they will know that I am the Lord their God. There's always a promise. I mean, always a promise. And we're still finishing up the book of Hebrews 11, 17 through 31 today. 11 times it says, by faith. 11 times. This is known as the faith chapter. It's where God defines faith for us. Hebrews 11, verse 1 that we read yesterday. Faith is the evidence of things hoped for, the substance of things not seen. The New Living Translation states it a little bit differently. Faith shows the reality of what we hope for. It is the evidence of things we cannot see. Yesterday's reading told us that without faith, it's impossible to please God. In other readings in our Bible, we've read where God pre-measures how much faith he gives to each one of us. So we can't say that we don't have faith. We can say we don't choose to use that faith. It's our free will, what we do with the faith. But as I was reading today, I was going down, and there's a theme for today in the reading. There's a theme that we can even tie it back to Ezekiel if we look deep enough and find it. So what was it that the city of Tyre was holding on to? They were prideful. They were so prideful they considered themselves a god, or the king for sure, considered himself a god. What was it? What would you say in that moment King Tyre's holding on to? And then we're reading Hebrews 11, 17. I am going to answer that, by the way. It was by faith that Abraham offered Isaac as a sacrifice when God was testing him. So we know the story of Abraham. He was old. In fact, his body was dead. Inability to have kids at the time that God spoke to him. 99 years old, and told him that he and Sarah would have a child. Sarah's womb was already dried up, the Bible says. Sarah laughed when God said that they would have a child this time next year. And then they had that child. And of course, we also know about them getting ahead of God and Sarah giving Abraham her servant girl, and he had a child with her before their son was born. So, big mess is what it was. Abraham, who had received God's promises, was ready to sacrifice his only son, Isaac. His only son, Isaac, who he waited until he was 100 years old to have. He was willing to sacrifice it. What are you holding on to? What was King Tyre holding on to? King Tyre was holding on to his wealth. He was holding on to the glory, the fame. They were known as the Gateway City, a mighty eastern gate. What was Abraham holding on to? Well, it looked as though he was holding on to Isaac until he laid him on the altar, the handmade altar that he made, and raised his hand with the knife. Isaac is the son through whom your descendants will be counted, was the promise. Abraham reasoned that if Isaac died, God was able to bring him back to life again. And in a sense, Abraham did receive his son back from the dead. See, Abraham was willing to release him, to say, God, he was yours before he was mine. I know you're capable of. But see, the other piece to this is Abraham was listening so closely to God that he already knew there was a promise in Isaac, that he would be the first of a mighty nation. You know, God had told him to climb up on that mountain and look out, that his descendants would be more than all the stars. In another passage, he had told Abraham that his descendants would be more than all the sands out there. So Abraham listened when God spoke. And when the time got tough, when God spoke and said, I want you to sacrifice your son, he remembered the promises. And so even if God was going to tell him to kill his own son, Abraham believed in God so much, in the goodness of God. He had such an intimate relationship with God that he was willing to say, Lord, here he is. If you tell me to kill him, I'm yours. He's yours. He's yours. Wow. Wow. What is it you're holding on to? Is it your checkbook? Is it, oh my gosh, I don't know how I'm going to pay the bills. I don't know how I'm going to get into college. I don't know how I'm going to pay for college. I don't know how I'm going to pay my student loans. I don't know. We don't have to know. We don't have to know. We don't have to know. See, Abraham thought he knew. God gives us a vision, he speaks to us, and then we think we know what that's going to look like. God told Abraham to sacrifice his son, to build an altar and sacrifice him on there. Abraham thought he knew what that looked like. He thought it was going to be, I'm going to lay him out on this, I'm going to tie him down, because already Isaac was already questioning, where's the ram? Where's the sacrifice? Daddy, where's the sacrifice? Where's the ram? Isaac's already questioning. Abraham had a vision, and he thought he knew what God was telling him to do, and he thought he knew what it was going to look like. And he raised his hand to fulfill what he thought his vision looked like, and God stopped him, and it didn't look like what Abraham thought it was going to look like. Do you know when God calls us and gives us a vision and he tells us to go forth, it rarely, if ever, looks like what we think it's going to look like. Just because we get a vision, a glimpse of seeing the way God sees, his ways are still higher than our ways. His thoughts are beyond our thoughts. It's impossible for us to completely think the way God thinks. It's not ever going to look like what we think it's supposed to look like. But I all the way through here, so that's that one. It was by faith that Isaac promised blessings for the future to his sons, Jacob and Esau. It was by faith that Jacob, when he was old and dying, blessed each of Joseph's sons and bowed in worship as he leaned on his staff. It was by faith that Joseph, when he was about to die, said confidently that the people of Israel would leave Egypt. He even commended them to take his bones with them when they left. It was by faith that Moses' parents hid him for 3 months when he was born. Hid him for 3 months. It was by faith they hid him. Faith in the living God. Faith that God's promises would be fulfilled. So a little 3-month-old baby, how tightly do you hold on to your babies? How tightly do you hold on to your grandbabies? Are you willing to sacrifice them? I mean, in the flesh, in the physical, they were killing all of the firstborn males, all the males. They were killing them. To keep him was sure death. But to put him in a basket and put him out on a river, a 3-month-old baby, what is it you're holding on to so tightly? Is it your worry? Is it frustration? Is it resentment? Is it unforgiveness? Is it bitterness? Your job? What is it that you're holding on to so tightly? You know, what's causing you the biggest problem in your life right now? Are you willing to just give it up? I mean, there's been so many times I've been praying for my kids or my grandkids that I've had to physically say the words, Lord, they were yours before they were ever mine. I give them back to you. I give up any right whatsoever to even say a word to them. It's not my place to speak into them. I thought it was because I'm their mom. But I don't have that right. Not if I'm a dead woman. Not if I've died to Christ to be raised again. I don't have that right. Not if I'm going to be that woman who says every morning, Lord, I'm yours. I'll only say what you want me to say and I'll only do what you want me to do. Then it takes on a whole different meaning that I won't even speak over my kids or into my kids, or I won't address the problem in their life. We all have problems. Unless God tells me to. Be still. Be still. There was a period of time I went 6 months that one of my kids was struggling. It was just growing pains. It was just growing pains. It's nothing out of the ordinary, what probably most people haven't experienced. But oh my goodness, I had all kinds of things I wanted to say. I had all kinds of advice. But I was praying first. Oh my goodness, I prayed first. And I know. This has been years ago. God said, be still. I went out in my backyard and I said, be still. What? Wait a minute. You're the one that handpicked me to be his mom. What do you mean, be still? And I remember the first time I violated that. He actually asked me my opinion. What do you think, Mom? And I spoke. Oh my goodness. Oh, it erupted. It was not pretty. It wasn't. I disobeyed God. And then I'm back in my backyard again praying. What am I supposed to do? What am I supposed to do? Did you hear what happened? Did you hear? Be still. What? What do you mean be still? I'm his mom. If anybody on the face of the earth has a right to speak, isn't it me? I'm his mom. Silence. Be still. Well, he's yours before he was ever mine. He's yours, not mine. Yes, Lord. Yes, Lord. It was by faith that Moses' parents, verse 23 in Hebrews 11, it was by faith that Moses' parents hid him for 3 months when he was born. For 3 months when he was born. Wow. Then they saw that God had given them an unusual child, and they were not afraid to disobey the king's command. The king's command. You know, we're in that situation right now. Is your fear of this virus driving driving everything with you? Is this fear of what's going on today? Have you released it? I mean, first of all, we ought to be commanding it back to the pits of hell. But in order to truly command it to go back to the pits of hell, we have to let go of it first. We can't keep hanging on to it. If you're in pain and you keep hanging on to the pain, it's going to stay with you. I mean, if you have been miserable for so long in your life, if you're one of those people that can say, I can't find a time in my life I've ever been happy. Maybe you're hanging on to the unhappiness. Anytime we release something, it creates a void. And we better be filled up with the Spirit of God to replace that void at the moment in time we release. Or we're left with, I don't know what to do without it. I mean, if I woke up one morning and I was totally happy, I wouldn't know how to act. I've been depressed and anxious for so long that I wouldn't even know how to act if I actually was happy for a day. I mean, what would happen? By faith, if you just woke up today. Let's do it for tomorrow morning, Saturday morning, November the 4th. We couldn't do it on November the 13th, for crying out loud. It's Friday. I mean, okay, can't do it on Friday the 13th, so let's do it on Friday. And no, y'all know I'm being a little sarcastic there, because I believe I think this is the most blessed day I'm going to have all month long. This is a blessed day. So we're going to start tomorrow morning. Tomorrow morning, we're all going to do this together. So the month of October, the challenge is not to grumble and complain. Tomorrow morning, November the 14th, we're going to wake up, Crystal, and we're going to say, I have zero problems. God has answered every prayer request I've ever had in the whole world. I have nothing to fear. I have nothing to be depressed about. I am the happiest I could possibly be ever. I'm the happiest I've ever been in my entire life. And let's just, from now till then, let's imagine that. Just use our imagination that tomorrow, Saturday, is going to be the best Saturday there's ever been. By faith, let's do this. And let's see how many things get taken off of us, just falls off of us for tomorrow. And then send me your testimonies from it. Oh, I'm excited. Verse 24, it was by faith that Moses, when he grew up, refused to be called the son of Pharaoh's daughter. He chose to share the oppression of God's people instead of enjoying the fleeting pleasures of sin. He thought it was better to suffer for the sake of Christ than to own the treasures of Egypt, for he was looking ahead to his great reward. Can you see the correlation between that and the king of Tyre? Moses was granted and was given the opportunity to reach out and grab on to those treasures and the title of Pharaoh's son. All the things that the king of Tyre was guilty of was being offered on a silver platter to Moses, and he refused to grab it and hold on. In other words, he released it. The theme is, what do you need to release today? What is it you're holding on to so tightly? Release. It was by faith that Moses left the land of Egypt. He released it. He knew he was destined to be the one to free his people, and yet he left it. He released it. God, I messed up. I killed a man. I jumped out ahead of you and I killed one of the Pharaoh's soldiers. Now they want to kill me. So off he went into the desert, into the wilderness. He released the vision he had to be the savior of the people. It was by faith that Moses left the land of Egypt, not fearing the king's anger. He kept right on going because he kept his eyes on the one who is invisible. We got to keep our eyes on the one who is physically invisible, but who is spiritually right here. I can see him. I close my eyes and I press in and I get myself quiet and I close my eyes, and oftentimes the very, very first thing I see is his eye looking back at me. And it's an awesome thing that happens. There's times when I close my eyes and I can see a silhouette. It's almost like I'm looking on the backdrop, the backside of my eyelids. I don't know how else to describe it. The Bible tells us to meditate on His Word, to meditate on His spoken Word, to meditate on His written Word. Meditation was created by God. It's been perverted by other religions, but meditating on God's Word is where we can enter into His presence. As we read this week, enter into His presence. I do that by closing my eyes. And then I see Him. And then I'm no longer waiting on a second return because it's already happened for me. It's in my heart. I'm not saying anything. I'm not changing anything. I am just experiencing what this word right here tells me I can experience by faith. By faith. But I have to let go of a lot of stuff. I have a lot of people I can be really mad at. I've been done wrong. Have you? Has somebody done you wrong? I have to let go of that. I have to know that what this word says is that God will take care of it. He's my vengeance. Oh, I got to finish this. Got to finish it. It was by faith that Moses left the land of Egypt, not fearing the king's anger. Verse 28, it was by faith that Moses commanded the people of Israel to keep the Passover and to sprinkle blood on the doorposts so that the angel of death would not kill their firstborn sons. It was by faith that the people of Israel went right through the Red Sea as though they were on dry ground. But when the Egyptians tried to follow, they were all drowned. It was by faith. There's something in all of this where people had to release something, had to give up, get their hands off of it. Their right to stay at home, go off into the wilderness. I mean, they had to give up their right to hang on to the dry land, the bank of that river, to walk into the middle of that water on dry ground. But when the Egyptians tried to follow, they were all drowned. It was by faith that the people of Israel marched around Jericho for 7 days, and the walls came crashing down. And then right there, it just came to me how impatient we are. Oh God, I need help with my finances. God, I need you to straighten this up. I need this debt to be gone. I need it to go away, Lord. And I get up from my prayer closet and I walk in and I grab the checkbook and it's like, well, where is it, God? I mean, really, it took me at least a minute to walk over here to pick up is that not how we are? We're so impatient. I think about it. They're walking around a physical city, shouting, knowing that God's going to do something, and they did it for 7 days. Quite frankly, 7 days later, I got something else on my prayer list. Most of the time, not always, but most of the time. We move on. He didn't answer that prayer. Oh, well, he didn't answer that prayer. Well, he didn't answer that prayer. 7 days they marched. That's not easy. You know, they didn't have pavement to walk on. You do realize that, don't you? And they didn't have an air conditioner following them as they walked, or a heater. I don't know what the weather was. I didn't look it up. It wasn't their creature comfort that was going on in that time. It was their faith. And their faith didn't waver for 7 days. And then the walls came crashing down. And it was by faith that Rahab, the prostitute, I can't look at prostitution the same after reading this book. Because that's what God calls us in our sin. Prostitutes. Not since Jesus. That's what he called the Old Testament folks in their sin. I get to be called a saint because he doesn't even see my sin anymore. Now, isn't that right there? That's a faith statement. See, the old Elizabeth, the Elizabeth who doesn't understand God's grace and God's mercy would call myself a prostitute, according to the way I'm reading about the Old Testament. But see, after Jesus, The truth is, he doesn't even see my sins. He died for all of our sins. He didn't leave anything out. I'll end on the Proverbs, chapter 27, verse 15 and 16. A quarrelsome wife is as annoying as a constant dripping on a rainy day. Stopping her complaints is like trying to stop the wind or trying to hold something with greased hands. Why is it all the women at the table are grinning great big? Tom's looking away. Cody's just staring straight ahead. Oh, God's word is so good, so good, so good. Hi, Jana. Good to see everybody on today. That was a 2020 year for Tyra. That's right, Debbie. Hi, Mel. How are you? And Karen and Bandy's watching. Good to see you guys. Never good when we try to get ahead of God. That's right, Sue. And Debbie said, God's thoughts are so much bigger than we can imagine. I love this interaction on the Bible study every morning. Thank you guys for your texting on here. Everything is as it should be. I trust God. That's right, Carrie Louise. Good morning, good morning, good morning, everybody. There's Julie Bates. I don't know how I found you, but I'm so glad I did. You make it so easy to understand. You just blessed my heart, Julie. Thank you. Thank you. I don't know how you found us either, but I'm so blessed that you did. Be sure and like Elizabeth Inman public page so that you can find these easily. I'm also on YouTube, Elizabeth Inman. That's my channel on YouTube. You can subscribe to that as well. One day this week, there was over 200 views on the YouTube channel on one day. It was like, wow, okay. Good to see everybody. Thank you guys for joining in on this fabulous Friday. What are you going to do in the morning? What are we going to do all the rest of today? We are imagining that we're going to wake up in the morning and there's zero problems. We've let go of all of our worry, all of our anxiety, all of our anger, all of our unforgiveness. Anything that's not of God is gone from us, and we get to wake up, and you're going to wake up in the Garden of Eden, and everything is good, and life is the best it's ever been tomorrow morning. That's what we're going to wake up thinking about. Today's the perfect day. This Saturday followed the perfect Friday. Oh, this is a perfect Friday. Yeah, let's see how that goes. Send me messages. Tell me how it goes. Love you guys.